Iconic's goal, that's why I said men and women building, is I want to emphasize that we need each other. No matter what we are saying in culture, whether it's Black men talking about Black women or white feminists having problem with conservative white men, the issue is that we have forgotten how to rely on each other and use our reliance on each other to build.
Hello and welcome to All of the Above. I'm James Brown. Thanks for joining me. This is the third in a series of conversations on modern romance. Our goal is to talk to 10 people who work with people who have given up on love or are looking for love or those who found it and are trying to make the best of it. Nicole Pinkston is one of those people. You can find her at misspinkiesthoughts.substack.com, where she doles out advice on building iconic marriages. Nicole Pinkston, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Did you find the love industry or did the love industry find you?
The love industry found me. I actually wasn't even in this realm until after I did my first book, but we'll get back into that a little bit. But yeah, it found me.
How did it find you?
Well, when I was doing my first ebook with Coach Felicia Killings, who is my publisher, in her program, A Right Conservative, I was doing a book called Breaking Fear. And I was trying to teach others from my experience I had with my miscarriage, how I pulled myself up from the brink of basically wanting to commit suicide and being, for myself. And so during the training for the book, she asked me, what did I want to do next? What kind of platform or leadership did I want to build from there? And I was thinking really, really hard about it. And I noticed that in the relationship space today, we have this gap from getting people to find love and, get married, but we're not actually empowering people and teaching them how to make it work, how to make it happen. We see people, in the red space, the manosphere, women podcasters, everyone is out there talking about their problems and statistics. But where do people go to actually get information when they're ready to get married? They're excited about marriage. They're actually in a marriage, but it's on the rocks. Where do we go to get training? And I decided to throw my hat in the ring.
First of all, I want to say my condolences. I can't imagine what it's like to go through that. It had to be just a life-changing experience.
It really was. And I really believe God used it for my betterment. It was more so of, okay, you're going to go through this hardship and then you're going to use this hardship as a way to help others. A lot of people want to help and a lot of people can help. But I really found that you can reach people when you can meet them where they are and you have experiences that you can pull from. A little bit about me. I am a combat veteran and I served in the United States Army. And I've realized through my training that good leaders and people who want to be out in the forefront have to be able to pull from their hard stories in order to reach people, not just, bark orders or just tell them you do this because I tell you to. So in this relationship space, I see a lot of people say, you need to get married. You need to have a 2-parent household, fatherless households and all these other political statistics, because I come from the political commentary side. But you never actually get the how to make everything work. You get the why or the you should, but you really don't get, how do you pull yourself up when you're in the brink of suicide? How do you pull yourself up when life has been beating you down? How do you find love in a culture that makes it seem like it's impossible? And that's where Iconic comes from.
Wow. There's a lot there that I'd love to tackle, including your combat experience, but I want to wait for that bit.
Okay.
I want to hear a bit more about the gap that you describe between finding a relationship, if I'm hearing you correct, and keeping it in the end goal. Can you give me a bit more of a flesh that out a little bit more?
Well, sure. So right now we have a lot of people that are either wanting to get into relationships, they're going on the dating apps, they're listening to podcasts and different movements, yet there's this gap on actually how we achieve marital success. How does, like, for example, my parents have been married for 42 years. How does someone live and grow and create a social empire and a destiny with someone for that long? They go from their teenage years to their senior years successfully navigating life. And so there's this gap of information, and I was looking for solutions. It's easy to say, men are dogs or women are toxic, feminism is tearing everything down. It's easy to point to problems in our society, but yet when you're looking for, okay, what do we do now? How do we move forward? How do we get men and women to stop fighting one another and actually come together as the team that they should be? You don't really see that anywhere. And that's where I said, okay, I'm in a marriage. Me and my husband were best friends. We making it work every day. Maybe I can pull from my parents' experience, my grandparents' experience, my own mistakes and experiences, and give others an actual formula for marriage success.
I've consumed a fair amount of your content, and you've used that phrase social empire, usually
Yes.
in tandem with the iconic marriage idea.
Yes.
Can you help us understand what a social empire is and why we need it?
Well, yes, the social empire is more than just a marriage. So I use the term social empire to explain the actual family unit, the community, your legacy, your generational wealth. It's more than just you as a wife or you as a husband. A social empire is everything you and your spouse are going to work towards. A social empire has a vision, has a mission plan, has a budget, has children in mind, has grandchildren in mind, has their living space. And then when you have your social empire, you then want politics to protect what you're building. So I come from the political space, but a lot of times we're talking about politics and the work of government is very slow. So I decided to go back. How can we fix our own lives, whether politics works for us or not? So I said, we need to start rebuilding up our households. And the reason social empires matter is because once you're starting to build these intentional unions with your mate and your children and everybody, you start to understand why things outside of that matter, why the economy matters, why where you live matters, why what you're doing matters. So it's more than just, hey, I got pregnant, let's get married, or hey, you cute, we should get together. It's more of an intentional building of your dynasty. Back in my first newsletter, I explained it like how back in the day, emperors and royalty, they planned out who they was going to have their children marry because they wanted their royal line to continue, their bloodline to continue to a certain goal. Today, we don't have that kind of monarchy because we're a constitutional republic. But we can still create the kinds of households where we are benefiting from the power of a husband and wife that have a vision that they're going towards. So I use the term social empire to be more specific at something that people can actually create brick by brick. And I use it when I'm talking about iconic marriages because I want to separate the type of marriage that we're creating here. We're not just coupling people up, but we're intentionally trying to be iconic.
Okay, so how does the social empire differ from an iconic marriage? Or is it within an iconic marriage that a social empire can bloom?
A social empire is an iconic marriage. But an iconic marriage is just the husband and wife. So you build an iconic marriage, but as you two are growing your money, your kids, your trust, your life insurance, it becomes your social empire. It becomes a dynasty like the Disney family, like the Rockefeller family, like the Washingtons, like Denzel and Pauletta, or they are an iconic couple. They're an iconic marriage, but they then made this social empire where their son is now in movies, their daughter. I don't like to use celebrity so much so because I don't want people to feel like they have to be famous or wealthy to grow their social empire. But it's just, celebrities are an easier example to show you guys. So iconic marriage is between, just the husband and wife, and they're being iconic when they're building their social empire. The social empire is the entire extent of everything you're creating, your businesses, your college degrees, your, if you guys, build a neighborhood. Is that making sense?
It does. And just to explain how how it makes sense to me. I didn't grow up, in a pretty broken household. I grew up in. I'm a single mom. Parents broke up when I was pretty young. And when I hear your description of this sort of iconic marriage and this social empire, it's sort of the infrastructure that you're building around your relationship and around your family, so that when your kid doesn't have to jump through some of the hoops that a person who with my background had to jump through, whether it's sort of whether it is college or is getting involved with a business or or whatever it is, the next steps into life, or just simply going through your childhood, you are sort of, there aren't as many. There's always going to be pitfalls. There's always going to be good ups and downs, but you can nerf some of those ups and downs by having an infrastructure. Am I sort of in your realm?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's what's actually missing in a lot of communities and a lot of homes today is infrastructure. An actual, marriage is considered an institution, but our institution is crumbling. So a lot of people don't know what healthy marriages look like, or they might know a couple of people but might not understand the importance, or they say marriage is just a piece of paper and they're missing the entire picture. And I'm not just saying this from, because I said I had a 2-parent household, but my husband, he didn't. And I see certain ways he's navigating now with us having our marriage and navigating, raising our kids, and how those, that infrastructure not being there caused us to have to navigate certain things within our relationship. So when I created Iconic, I want to help give people the tools we learned the hard way, so that they can not have to go through that. Of course, life is ups and downs, but you want to kind of mitigate as many problems as you can before they become a problem. And then you have people that talks about the divorce rate and, all of the problems with dating apps. And those are the after effects of us not having those infrastructures in place, especially in the Black community, where a lot of people have intention with pointing out our single mother home rate and things like that.
Dating apps was on my list for later, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are now. And we'll start broadly.
Okay.
Do you think they're a net positive or a net negative
to dating?
Yes.
Oh, I feel like dating is just net positive if you go in with the intent that marriage is the end game. If you're just going into dating just to have fun or just to hook up, you have no vision and no direction. So to me, it depends on what your goals are. What are you courting for? So yes, and then dating to me is just a tool to get you to the iconic marriage. You can't just jump to an iconic marriage. You got to know what you want in a person. You got to know, as a man, what your vision for your mates are. As a woman, how do I become a wife? Because a man's supposed to find a wife, which is a good thing, meaning she has to have wifely abilities before she get in. You have to actually vet people before. I always call marriage a business. And I use that not to degrade marriage, but so people can be in this mindset that you're working towards something.
Do you feel that apps have at all changed that process? Dating apps?
I just feel like apps is just a modern tool. I feel like you just cannot make the tool the God of everything. I feel like it can work just like anywhere else. I just do think that once you get the connection over an app, you still have to meet someone to understand them in person. So I just like some people are worried about AI and all these things. I feel like all these things are just modern tools to get us to where you are. And I would never negate trying to use a tool that might help somebody, because some people, they meet over Twitter, they meet over social media, and some people have met the love of their life over an app. So I would never say, no, don't use them. I just feel like we have to put them in their proper perspective and remember that they're just a tool. They're not going to do the work for you. They're not going to maintain your relationship. They're not going to make, you can use the app to schedule like an appointment, but you got to remember that you still have to actually put your effort forward.
You have to actually go to the appointment, right?
Yes, you have to actually go. You have to make the appointment. You have to make decisions. An app is just a tool. It's not going to do the work or to do the marriage for you.
I want to, because I think that's an interesting point that sort of ties back to something you said earlier. You mentioned the politics to protect what you're building. Like
Yes.
that's a phrase that I hadn't heard before. It puts in a lot of things in my head. What do you mean by that?
So a lot of people want to tell you to come vote and go out and pick this person. But a lot of times, if you're not working towards something, like say you're trying to build a business and then you're getting all of your startup funding, but now you have a politician that's talking about taxing you more, or you have a politician that's going to raise property values to where you're building your actual business at. Now you have a political concern because you're building a business. So I'm looking at it from social to political. You then are trying to protect what you're creating because you have something that you're working towards. A lot of people who are not interested in politics or think it's too much or they don't care, it's because they don't have something that they need to save or savor for their social empire. You see what I'm saying? So I went from the politics and tried to use politics to help social, but then I was like, well, politics, is a whole different animal. And so maybe we start to go back to the beginning with our families, our dads, our moms, and then we create those in the structure of an iconic marriage. As our social empire starts to extend, then we'll start to see where politics is an issue.
Give me a couple of examples of how politics are a direct issue on a marriage. I mean, I know you mentioned, if you have a business, but on a relationship.
For example, they use abortion to talk about poor teenage women need abortions because it's hard to raise children today. But if this woman was more so in her protected marriage, then she wouldn't need to worry about which politician is worried about her abortion rights. Or let's see if we can think of something else. Like I usually use taxes because it taxes families and it's harder. And like married couples, they actually benefit from having more finances. Married couples have better tax breaks than single couples and things of that nature. But also like where your kid goes to school. If you're having a problem with the district that's in your area, if you are starting to say, no, maybe I want to homeschool my child, then you got to live somewhere that actually promotes homeschooling or some kind of, let me go to private schools and things like that. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I don't know if I had mentioned that I'm more of, a conservative than I am progressive, but I didn't want to get into the, the political discussion so much to focus more on the social.
No, I got that sense from your content. I mean, it was, not even. I wasn't even thinking so much conservative. I was thinking more traditional. That's that's
sort of, yes.
That's what I got from it. But you classify yourself as conservative.
Yes, but
Okay.
That's more ideological wise, not more so what political party to vote for or anything like that.
Fair.
So,
Because I've had, as I mentioned at the top, I've had several people on to talk about love and relationships and trying to make it work. How do you feel that ideology factors into that?
It factors so much more onto what each individual in a relationship feels their role is in relationship. I talk traditionally, but obviously if I was a combat vet, I was still not a stay-at-home mom. I was a career woman. I was independent. I didn't, look to a man to pay my bills or anything. But once we got into our situation, into our roles, we did what was comfortable for us. So I'm not going to be the one to typically say, tell your wife to stay home. So that's why I didn't want to say for you saying more traditional, but more so what works and functions for your relationship. So I believe that when you have your values in alignment and whatever that is, I'm not, I'm a Christian, but I'm not going to say you must be. When you have unity, you have like the equal yokes. You have two people working towards the same goal. You're not playing tug of war with he wants me to stay home, but I am a career woman and now I got to choose between my man and my job. Instead you have a man who is okay with you having money and bringing it into the social empire, and then you guys navigate, how y'all going to make that work with kids and daycare and things like that.
So it's more about intent. I think I see a pattern here. Obviously, we get to your iconic marriage, your social empire, and you get all that by paddling in the same direction, essentially.
Yes.
Are there other elements of an iconic marriage that you would like to highlight?
Is there? So one thing I believe is that you actually have to love each other and the other gender before you can actually be a leader inside of the relationship. I see a lot of people discussing relationships online and they don't even sound like there's men talking and breathing and they don't sound like they even like women.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's women that are talking, about men this and men that. And I'm like, you sound like you don't even like men. We have to get back to understanding that men and women aren't enemies. We work best together. Like you're a guy and you're interviewing me, you're a male, I'm a female. We work better as social creatures, depending and leaning on each other. But we've been fighting for so long that no one wants to put the swords down and get back to what works, and everybody wants to be the one telling the other one what to do and not listening and hearing and taking what we can from each other. I tell men sometimes women lean more into that masculinity because they don't have the masculinity around. And a lot of women can't embrace their femininity more when masculinity steps up. And then some men feel like their masculinity is being challenged in today's culture. And I'm like, if you're really a masculine man, you should be able to figure a way around that, but that's no here nor there. But Iconic's goal, that's why I said men and women building, is I want to emphasize that we need each other. No matter what we are saying in culture, whether it's Black men talking about Black women or white feminists having problem with conservative white men, the issue is that we have forgotten how to rely on each other and use our reliance on each other to build.
As I listen to you describe, especially that last bit, it screamed Kevin Samuels to me. I don't know how familiar you are with Kevin or the late Kevin Samuels.
I know of him. I don't know like the body of his work. I know he was in the manosphere, and I know that he was in that, but I don't really listen in depth as much as I probably should to other relationship coaches. I'm just trying to describe my own thing and then just help from my angle. Yeah. And it's kept me busy. So maybe I should listen to him. But I'm not so much putting blame. I think that which would separate me from others. I'm not saying men did this and women did this. I'm more saying, okay, everybody stop. Let's figure out what we can do to come back together and unify, because I believe marriage is a life hack if done right with the right person. Mm-hmm. And it's the goal of marriage is worth us putting, our unity in the forefront more so than what we're fighting about, if that makes sense.
It does. For our listeners' sake, Kevin Samuels, the late Kevin Samuels, he died a year ago. uh, was a relationship guru, definitely in a manosphere-ish space. And the thing that overlaps with you, Nicole, is sort of your description of sort of, and I certainly agree with it, where there seems to be these tension between the sexes. And it's not simply black women and black men or white women and white men. It seems like there's across the board, across society at the moment, there seems to be this tug of war that's kind of the opposite of what you're describing the need for in terms of iconic relationships of what should be, what our roles are, how we should fit together. Very much it feels like we're not listening to each other, both sides of both sexes. And that's where I see the overlap between some of the things that I heard from Samuels in you. Not in whole cloth, but at least in a bit. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, I see what you're saying. Like, I would never try to speak for a man. I'm a woman, obviously, but I'm just speaking from my own marriage because my husband and I were best friends. And I just feel like when we, try to decide to do something, for example, like say we want to pay down some bills, we come together and we just make a plan where we both discuss and we talk about it. I think we spend so much time trying to, well, women don't accept accountability, or men are too brokenhearted about women. We're so out there ready to put in the forefront the things that we get wrong, the things that we suck at, even though we're imperfect human beings. I would never say that I do everything right in my marriage. But what I think I get right is that I'm willing to effectively communicate my needs to my husband and where he can meet them. And then vice versa, he tells me what he needs, and then we plan and we work towards that goal. If the end goal is the end goal for us to get married and for us to have a successful relationship, or is the end goal to make women look bad, or is the end goal to make men listen to me? You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
So I think.
See what you mean.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I see what you mean.
So I think, for the audience, it's went from, okay, we have these issues. Maybe we messed up somewhere along the line. I don't know if it was feminism. I don't know where. But everybody's stuck in pointing out the issues, the outrage, the demasculation. Women got to do this, that, and the other. That we became bogged down with just that we've forgotten how to build up relationships that we want to have. We've forgotten how to love one another. We've forgotten how to talk to one another. That's why I give, relationship rights on effective communication, emotional intelligence, self-love. We've forgotten how to love ourselves as women, as men, individually whole before we even link up with someone. How do we negotiate something that's a hard line for us, a boundary, and get that reciprocation from our spouse? We've forgotten basic humanity. How do we talk to someone when we want something? What is love? I did a whole article breaking down 1 Corinthians 13, what love is from Paul's point of view, because some people don't even remember what that is. So my thing is not so much figuring out who is wrong or where our flaws are, but it's so much going back to the beginning, and can we love each other again?
You said another phrase there that's going to stick with me for a bit that I'd like to spend some time on. We've forgotten basic humanity. What a statement. And you went on to talk about some of the small things. When did you come to that conclusion?
Just trying to navigate social media, trying to, take care of my own family, trying to step back being a mom. When I was writing my book, Breaking Fear, to break it to people, I was talking about fear for a while. And then I realized that a lot of times we are macro people, but we are forgetting the micro stuff. And if we get back to just those basic things, then we will figure out, the big stuff. Just like I was in the political space first, and then I was like, let me take a step back and go back to our households and our families. So I was trying to find an angle that wasn't being talked about, and then I started seeing like men saying this, women saying this, people just at each other throat on social media. I'm on Twitter a lot. And I was just like, what happened to us liking each other? Forget dating. I'm just talking about being friends, talking on the phone, just, even as children do it, a child could make somebody mad and then the next day they friends again. What happened to that? So that's why I started to talk back from that level. I think we've gotten so angry and so upset as an American culture that we've forgotten how to do the opposite.
Fascinating. Because I do see that in a bunch of different ways. I know you're not in the political space anymore, or at least not directly. But politics is certainly one of those levels where it seems like we're not even liking each other anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem that way in a bunch of different directions. Like I was just talking about this earlier today, how it seemed, where did everybody go? It seems like we're all sort of torn apart.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't have these places where we come together anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Where meeting new people away from the internet seems almost impossible. It seems like, at least where I live in my part of the world, I live in Western New York. It feels like where everyone's a bit more guarded. Like it's not what I remember when I was younger, and I wonder, some of it is just being older. I'm in my late 30s versus being in your 20s or a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But it does seem like there's a culture change where I'm not sure we actually do like each other anymore.
And we probably don't. And I do think a problem, the internet and being online all the time is part of that. Because I do feel like that's more of a, a forever online type of way of living than actually, real life. When I live in middle Georgia, and like if I go to the store and stuff and I just talk to somebody in the checkout, it's fine. But you could post, something on Facebook and, I like pancakes. And then the next person is like, what you trying to say about waffles? And you're like, hold up, that's, and I probably stole that from someone. But my point is, like, in real life, people aren't the same, and I like when Dave Chappelle, hate him or love him, when he said that Twitter isn't a real place. And I think he was basically telling us to go touch grass,
Mm-hmm.
go, log off for an hour or two.
Yeah.
So, and I think engagement and monetization and, being popular online comes from the drama. I had this thought about how, like, what I'm saying about marriage is different from like love and hip hop, where you see people on there like throwing glasses at each other and fighting, and everybody's like, oh, I don't want that kind of relationship where my girlfriend's hit me in the head with
no one
glass.
does.
Yeah, no one does, but that's what they're putting out on entertainment. And then we're consuming it. And somebody who wants a relationship is seeing that, like, is this what marriage is? Oh, no, I don't want this. So I created Iconic basically as a counter to that and say, oh, no, relationships don't have to be like that at all. Me and my husband actually like each other. We actually like spending time with each other. We actually make each other laugh.
Is there such a thing as an iconic marriage without kids?
Yes. I believe children is a decision and also a blessing from God. Like in my first book, Breaking Fear, I talk about my miscarriage because I want to let women and men know that, pregnancy loss isn't the end all be all of your relationship. You know, I went through a period of infertility, and I had to come to the realization that children are, not always up to our bodies. Like I had my daughter 4 years ago, and that pregnancy was very difficult on me. So I don't believe, even though I'm talking about social empires, which would include your legacy of children, I don't believe that that negates people who can't have or even don't want to. I believe you should want kids if you want them, because people who don't want children will raise them very differently than someone who wants to have a child. Just like I don't push marriage on everybody. A lot of people say everybody should get married. I'm the last person to say that. You have to want this. You have to want a legacy. So I would never. And one of the ladies I'm good friends with from college, she's at like 25 years, and her and her husband have a great marriage, and they don't have any kids because she can't have any. So I would never say that. It's just I got a section in my iconic ebook manual. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you can get it, that talks about parenting and help parents navigate, because the weight of children can make or break your marriage. But I wouldn't say that for people who don't have children.
I'd like to get into your coaching work, and obviously it's you have the newsletter and you do coach couples, and I also wanted to focus on Black couples in particular. And for those who don't know, we're both Black. It's clear that our marriage rates are very low. What do you attribute that to?
I attribute it to our system. Actually, the government, messed around with our marriages and our families in the 70s and the 60s, but I don't believe we're stuck. I would never say that we're stuck because of what the government has. Black America has a specific, unique history in the United States. But I do want to point out that Pew Research has said that 39% of households are now two-led parent households. The millennial generation and Generation Z are working towards, back towards marriage. We have a lot of famous people like Kevin on the stage, Beyonce and Jay-Z, and a lot of other people that are promoting positive love. But particularly in the Black community, with our fatherless rate being what it was for so long, a lot of people just didn't have that infrastructure, even if they wanted to get married, of who they could look towards. They just had grandma or auntie so-and-so. And so we didn't have those certain, like, I'm blessed that I had my parents, but my dad, his parents were divorced. My mom had her parents. So you get a mixed bag in Black cultures. You got some people who've been married for 60, 70 plus years. That's why I wanted to also create Iconic for people who are seasoned vets. I need you guys to step up and come over and talk, because once you guys start to tell your secrets and to talk about your healthy relationships, I think us in healthy relationships, we're so busy and bogged down. We're not in the forefront of these relationship conversations. So people don't get to see that there are couples out there that are, making it work. So the Black community has a lot of things to overcome and still work towards, but I would never say that we can't and we don't. You see successful Black communities like in, Central Maryland and other places across the country. So we are reversing some of these numbers. And I often ask people on my Twitter, why are the punditry class not telling you guys that things are getting better? Why are they not giving people that hope that better is out there? And I'm not saying if you're single that's bad or that you have to be married to be better, but I'm just saying that if that's something you want to do, you can.
Are there things that pull us apart, that don't pull apart relationships in other races?
I believe we got pulled into some stuff that really wasn't for our culture to boost numbers. I believe like when the beginning of suffragists started, it was more of a white culture kind of situation. And then the women didn't have enough numbers. So they started to bring in, and then we had Black feminism start to go on the rise. And then our men were also dealing with the prison to school pipeline through, um, the misdiagnosis of just mental disorders like ADHD and things. We had the crack epidemic. We just had so many things, outside entities put on us. And even if you look through slavery, you can see that Black couples were still trying to be together, or you've seen slaves run away to try to find their families and things like that. And then during Reconstruction, when we were trying to figure out what to do with this newfound freedom and freedmen, we're trying to, build, and then it was torn down at every chance it got, So outside influences started to trickle into our culture, and now we have stuff at the forefront of that's not necessarily our culture that is guiding our culture. Like a lot of people say, well, the music industry is this, that, and the other. And I'm like, we don't really own that though. Not to give us an excuse for what our kids are consuming and what we are buying and what we give our money to. That's not to absolve us from that. But it's just so many outside entities that came in and was like, messing us up. Now, is there toxicity from some women today? Yes. Is there toxicity from men today? Yes. And those are issues that we need to hash out within our community. And I think things like the Dear Wifey program podcast and his events where he has a lot of marriage coaches and family coaches and life coaches on there is one good start. I've seen a lot of other married couples starting up podcasts and doing their love things, and like what I'm doing with Iconic. We need these type of things to show people something else. We can't just say, go get married. And people are like, but how do we make that work? And that's why I created my e-course as an actual thing to coach directly to couples. So that way, at least they have something to pull from the next time they go against something.
Are there archetypes or buckets of people or couples that you encounter?
Oh, yes. So I have a lot of friends from when I was served in the military that I've seen as they've been married over the couple of years. My siblings are married. I have single friends too. A lot of people I've met through doing some of the political work, like Sonny Johnson and her relationship. I've done a couple of spaces where people came in and was like, oh, well, I've been married for 20 such and such years. People I've been following for years, I didn't know if they were married or single or not. And they starting to come forward and saying, your content is helping me, come forward. And so I don't pull necessarily just from me and my husband. I also do, I go look at Focus on the Family, marriage.com. I look at Psychology Today and pull information from different areas. I don't just give you guys my, just my take. I try to pull from different types of resources to give people a more balanced picture. And I want to be honest and upfront and not just give you, just the fairy tale, fluffy butterfly stuff.
I think what I meant by that question there was when you encounter people that you coach.
Oh, okay.
What do they have in common?
They usually know there's something going on in their relationship, but they know they love their spouse and they want to reach out before they go to the divorce line. They usually have either miscommunication, maybe, their spouse is not receiving what they're saying. Maybe they've been fighting. Sometimes it's insecurities, or sometimes issues pop up that they didn't see coming. Like one day the other spouse just say they're not happy and they go, why are you not happy? I thought everything was good. So the commonality I see with couples that have reached out to me is that they're just hitting a snag and they don't actually know how to unsnag themselves, basically. Or they are scared that if they attempt to do it on their own, they're just going to make it worse.
Is there a typical point in a relationship that they're at? Or is it all over the place?
Usually it's people who have been in a relationship for a while, maybe they transition in their career or transitioning to a stage with their kids. From what I can tell, it's usually something else, and then the relationship is either put on the back burner or the relationship issues have been expounded. So it's usually a transition, like they got together young and now they're in their 30s, or they got together and the spouse was in college and now they graduated and they're trying to find work and they're struggling, or, a lot of people have issues through the pandemic that been exposed during the lockdowns and things like that.
You're a combat veteran, as we mentioned earlier. Are there
Yes.
elements of that experience that rub off on this kind of work?
Yes. The one thing that I use a lot is leadership and what real leadership looks like versus this idea that is just telling somebody what to do and they just follow you. I had to go through leadership training to get my stripes as a sergeant, and the leadership for the military was specific for that, but I was able to pull from what I learned leading in a war zone, leading stateside, and like kind of tailor that to, how a couple can make that work. And I think it's been a little bit successful, especially with civilians who don't understand the pressures of or the weight of being a leader. A lot of people think that being a leader kind of gives you the ability to push off certain things onto others, when actually all the responsibility is actually on you. And then when you take ownership of what you can handle and what you control, you actually get your power back. If you think that all of your relationship is mostly on what your spouse can do or what the political class can do or your lot in life can do, you don't feel like there's anything you can fix. The main thing that we're taught is that we want to all come home. So we all want to do things that get us home. So when you have like that, you heard me talk about vision and mission, that's where that comes from. When you have a focus on the end goal, which is either, buying land, having children, being able to provide for your grandchildren. When you have that focus, you can train towards that. And then you can focus on your social. You're not worried about someone else's big old cute butt, or you're not worried about, oh, this guy over here got all this money. You're not distracted because you're focused on your mission for your family.
Well, it's a shame that you're not worried about someone's big old cute butt, but I would imagine in combat situations, that would be a liability.
Yes. You could get someone hurt. You can get yourself hurt. You can ruin the whole mission. You can give the enemy an advance space. A lot of times people think that your job dictates what you do, and we didn't always do that. So you learn how to cross work. Like I was a cook, so you would think that I would just go over there and make food, but they had civilians doing that. So then they took us cooks and they just put us all in different kind of jobs. Like I pulled security for a while. I had to make sure I actually did good security, or somebody could have snuck through the gate with an explosive device. Or I pulled security for women voting over there. And, their culture is different than ours. So a lot of the females were scared to be so confident in participating in Iraqi elections.
I was just about to ask. So you served in Iraq?
Yes.
Any other conflicts?
Just Iraq. I went twice, one to southern Iraq in Salil, and then Al Akbar, I think it's called, and Al-Assad base in the middle of Iraq. Yeah.
For how long?
The first time was 13 months, and then I think the second time was 11 months.
How'd you make that decision?
To join?
Yes.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I was in college and then it wasn't going well. And so I dropped out. And then the Army came and just gave me an option and was like, well, we can pay for your college to go back again. And I was like, okay. I was 20 and I wasn't doing anything. And when you're 20 and you're young, you're not really thinking about a lot. So I said, okay. And I know that sounds like not an amazing, heroic, I wanted to serve my country, story, but that's the truth.
But I'm imagining that there is a fair amount of people who had a similar story to that.
Oh, yeah. So I always joke, they say, about the college student loan thing. And I was like, well, I had a way to pay for my college. So, and I did it. I went to college after I got out. So.
What years were you serving?
2006 to 2011. I did 5 years.
Wow. What's it like for a woman in the military?
It's a lot. It's a lot, but just like anybody in the military, I think who your leaders are and who you listen to matter. I ran into some very bad people and I ran into some very good people. And one of the good people is now my husband. So we served together and we were actually in the same unit together. So
wow.
Yeah.
Is that how you met?
Yes, that's how we met.
Wow.
So, and I feel like they always joke and tell the guys that if the Army wants to issue you a wife, they would. And I said, look what they did to us. And so that's our running joke. And but far as me being a female, I personally was trying to just do me and just, but you get called out as being a woman and you do the best you can. And, I do feel like they try to either have really, really good female soldiers and then really, really bad ones. And I was like dead in the middle. And, it's very hard sometimes because people remember the men and they remember the males and they remember the guys that's serving. And I always have to tell people men and women or service men and women. And, but I was just blessed with some good leaders that came in my life. And for all of the things that I could point to that were bad, I always have that balance with the good.
I would doubt that you had the opportunity, but I'll ask anyway. Did you get to go off base much?
You talking about overseas?
Yes.
I did. My commander had a group that was always going on convoy, so they made everybody go. I didn't go often, but I did go a couple of times, in the convoys. I went the first deployment and the second deployment. We wasn't really doing much, so everybody was just going out. And so I went out a couple of times. So yeah, I seen the countryside. I seen what the actual, country looked like. And I'm proud to be an American.
Can you describe what the country looks like? Or what you recall?
It looks like a desert. It looks completely brown. It looks like one color.
Just brown?
It looked like a war zone. It looked like a country of people struggling to survive. It was really heartbreaking sometimes to see the kids. I felt like we were, a lot of people don't like the nation building and things like that, but I felt good about it because I felt like we were able to actually, do something other than just fight over there. Whenever you think that we have it so bad here, there's always somewhere worse. I'll just put it like that. There are areas in the United States that look like it, like very deserty and everything, but there's no like signs and stuff like the green signs we have on the highways and things like that. It's like it's real monotonous when you get to some of the roadways. Like you could end up falling asleep because it all looks the same. So America is beautiful in different ways all across our country that are way different than that country. I mean, there's beautiful. I've seen, the Euphrates River. I've flown over it in some of the military planes. And it's just an experience you'll never forget.
And forgive me if I asked. I'm not sure if I did. What branch?
I was in the Army.
Okay. Wow. What a picture you paint there. Just not fat, but flat brownness, as far as the eye can see.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, they have like little areas that look like marketplaces with like where they're selling things and stuff like that. But I think what I'm describing is more like when you're on the roadways, and it's just like, yeah, like a flat blackness, unless you get to like more of a city with like brown buildings and homes and things like that.
Well, Nicole, any famous last words?
Yes, I believe marriage is a life hack if you do it right with the right person. And everything you do, please be iconic.
Well, Nicole Pinkston, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to all of the above. Let me know what you think wherever you're listening, and do me a favor, share it with a friend. You can follow my work at jamesbrowntv.substack.com. Paid subscribers get access to bonuses, including 10 the Hard Way, our members-only show. You can reach me at james@rochesteraccent.com or jamesbrowntv@gmail.com. You can also leave me a message at 585-484-0339. We might have you on the show. I'm James Brown, and as always, be well.